So we're going to start on time. I'm Doug Hibbert. It's a delight to welcome all of you to Saturday morning in Chapel Hill. This started actually before I returned to Chapel Hill in 1982 in the spring, when they actually had the real Charles Perrault. And that's where the term Saturday morning came from. And over the years, it's been used to do a variety of things. It launched the Bicentennial Observance Celebration. There were several years when there were reunion debating teams that competed against the student teams. And we did doctor the questions to advantage the reunion teams. Otherwise, it would have been probably a little troubling for the reunion folks. The last several years, we've happily evolved onto a format that's been well received, where we invite a panel of students, today's students, to join former students who are returning for their reunions. And it's my pleasure now to introduce the moderator, not someone who's a stranger to Chapel Hill, who actually started in student affairs before moving on to undergraduate admissions, to law school, and then had a long and distinguished career in athletics. Someone who knows student life well, knows Chapel Hill well, knows the university well, Dick Baddour.
Doug has set the stage well. I just want y'all to know, this lady right here, she and I was assistant dean of men. I was assistant. Is it working? Yeah. I was assistant dean of men, and she was assistant dean of women. And I worked with Jim Chancellor, and she worked with Miss Carmichael, that we graciously named a dorm for right here.
I just love that woman.
I know I'm gonna have you talk about her in a minute. Okay, thank you. Okay, Doug set the stage, and so let me give here just to kind of give you an idea of what this is about here today. So we have Saturday classes, and we have no Saturday classes. We have the Y Corp, and we have the Pit. We have Woolen Gym, and we have the Smith Center. We have La Pizza. Remember that? La Pizza in Carver. There you go. One place to get pizza. Now there are 100 places at least to get pizza. So we have the Rat, and we have Spankies. We have Weegians, and we have flip-flops. We have khakis and Madras shirts, and we have, what's a Madras shirt? So you get the idea. It's about change, the change in 50 years, what's happened to our campus. And yet there's so many things that are just like they were when you were here and walking our campus. The Orwell, the Bell Tower, Franklin Street, Carolina basketball for sure. Students still eat at Lenore Hall. And we still have terrific faculty who guide these students so very well. So I want you to meet the folks now who are going to take us through just about 40 minutes or so of a journey. We're going to leave plenty of time for you to ask questions. So I'd like for the panel to introduce themselves and hear your instructions, and it's a pass-fail. Okay. Name, major, hometown before you enrolled, hometown now, or where you will live. Okay, Woody, you start us.
I'm Woody Harrison, majored in English that ended up from Wilson, North Carolina. I went to law school, and I went back to Wilson, North Carolina. I've been practicing law there for 40-some years after the Navy.
Hi, I'm Judy Cole, and I grew up in Portsmouth, Virginia. Came to WC and then transferred here, majored in sociology, and left here and went to the School of Social Work, Graduate School of Social Work in St. Louis, and became a psychotherapist. And after living in St. Louis, I moved to Virginia Beach, which is where I am now.
Good morning, I'm Stephen Rich. I grew up in Atlanta, Georgia. I was an 18%er. I came up here to take accounting and be an accounting major, which I found out this weekend is not even an offered major anymore. You have to get a master's of accounting now. And we have retired back here 10 years ago, so we're Chapel Hillians.
Hi, I was Dersey Bridgeford, Dersey McDevitt, and I came from Sheridan, Wyoming. long way to know a living soul. Majored in nursing, married Larry, moved to Asheville, and have been there since.
Good morning, my name is Alexis White. I'm a rising senior, class of 2015. I'm a journalism and communication studies major. I'm originally from Cary, North Carolina, so 20 minutes down the road. And this summer I'll be in Washington, D.C. for an internship, which is where I hope to be when I graduate as well.
Hi, I'm Jordan Lim. I grew up in San Jose, California, and moved to Raleigh, North Carolina a few years ago. I am a journalism and mass communication studies major, and
Are you graduating or you got another?
I'm a rising junior.
So you know where you're gonna live next year, right around here somewhere.
My name is Brett Robinson. I'm a rising senior from Princeton, New Jersey. I'm a nutrition major at the School of Public Health, and I'm also studying Spanish and chemistry. Hoping to go to med school next year, somewhere on the East Coast. And then finally, I'm Landon Sherwood. I'm a junior, or I guess rising senior now, from Southern Pines, Pinehurst, North Carolina. I'm majoring in business, and I'm minoring in social and economic justice. I grew up in Southern Pines, and then I'll be a senior, so I'll be back here again in the fall.
Fantastic. So that's our panel. So here we go. Woody and Judy, I want you to talk just a little bit about how you got here. Who brought you to Chapel Hill? What was it like checking in your residence hall in your dorm? Were you by yourself or were you with others?
Well, my parents brought me here, and I lived in Kiever dorm. And checking in was overwhelming. I don't remember all the details. I just remember thinking, wow, I'm really here in Chapel Hill, this big important school, and I'm a student here. And I met people right away, and I fell in love with this place right away, and it's been a love affair ever since.
I let Judy go first because I was not typical, and I thought she might be more typical of the parents moving people in. I was lucky enough to find freshman camp. I came to freshman camp before I checked into the dorm, and I spent the time at freshman camp and met a lot of people and got challenged by a lot of professors before I actually moved into the university. So when we started with orientation, those of us at freshman camp, 100 and some of us, I guess, had that to go ahead of time. I also was a freshman that had a car. I kept it outside of town. I rented a space from somebody at the bottom of the hill on the street down there.
Chief Beaumont's still looking for you.
So both those things are a little different. My mother said, go, and I left, and I went to Chapel Hill. I drove myself, and I went
What you said. All right, let's get two students to talk about that. Landon and Alexis.
So it's funny that you mentioned freshman camp, because I also attended freshman camp, but it's a different version now. It's called Carolina Kickoff. We have 150 students come 3 days before, I guess, move-in starts. And then we pretty much have the same concept, but it's a little bit more, I guess, fun-based. It's more just get to know everyone. We have like a food fight. We hang out for 3 days. Just a good introduction to college. And then for me, so moving was actually easy since I did freshman camp. I had to move in before everyone else did. So it was pretty easy. I lived in an airing house on the ground floor my first year. So it was pretty basic. I walked in, my parents, I have a twin brother who goes here as well. So that was pretty convenient to have him as another person to help me move in. But yeah, so it's pretty easy. No problems on my part.
I moved in with my mother and my little brother begrudgingly, and I moved into Carmichael dorm, which is not normal for most first years because it's a predominantly sophomore, junior, senior, or athletic dorm. But fortunately, I was able to move into Carmichael, and we chose to take the steps because my mother is afraid of elevators, so that was a struggle. But it was a positive experience. Our RAs were very helpful. Met a lot of students that were just very willing to jump in and help.
So you all had students, you all had appointment times to move in, right? You were told a specific time to come in and how long did you have to actually get into your dorm room?
So the way they do it, I'm an RA currently in Morrison now, but the way they do it is each year gets a different day in which they're allowed to move in, and they're designated move-in hours. So they're usually from 8 in the morning to about 6 in the afternoon. And in the parking lot, you'll have 30-minute time slots where you can park, and unload so that you can get everything up to your room. Of course, it does not take 30 minutes, especially when you're a girl whose mom has color-coded every bin and exactly what she wants everything in your room. So you'll beg the people for extra time with your parking pass, and they usually give it to you, but it is somewhat scheduled.
Thank you. So Dercy and Stephen, what I want to know now is how often did you go home? How often did you communicate with your parents? How did you communicate with your parents, and if by phone, for how long and when?
I was from Atlanta, Georgia. I'll go back to, they put me on the plane at the old Atlanta airport and said, bye, have a good time. I got to Cobb Dorm and met my roommate, and I was really on my own and met everybody from there. As far as communicating, there were 2 phones in Cobb Dorm, one at each end of each floor's hall, and so I would call on that maybe once a week. I was talking to my future bride, though, probably every day, and I had another person around the corner in Cobb who we'd fight over the phone with, and that was Larry Brown. And I found out later, Larry Brown was always getting calls from his mother. And when he first won his NBA championship, the first person he thanked was his 98-year-old mother. So, and then we communicated by mail, at least Sandra and I communicated by 5-cent stamp mail. That was the way it was.
Go ahead.
I sent everything ahead in a trunk. Do you remember those little camp trunks that we all had with your name on it and so on? And it had arrived when we got here. I guess we had to do that because we came so far. And my mother came with me, and my mother was very beautiful, and she was in her early 40s. And I remember boys hitting on my mother, not on me. As far as communicating, I don't remember communicating with them very much. We had that same arrangement where you had to fight for the phones and people were talking to boyfriends and stuff. I'm sure I did. I think I probably wrote letters to my dad. But
Jordan and Alexis. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, Pat. Yeah, whatever. You help me. Yeah, pass it. I'm sorry.
Okay, so I guess when I first moved in, it was pretty easy moving in and like getting acclimated to college life. I think that with like phones, everybody pretty much has their own personal phone. It was fairly easy to talk to my mom. So it was actually this year where I realized that I'd go like a couple days without calling her or texting her or something, and I'd say, oh, I better call my mom. She normally likes me to check in to make sure I'm still alive, but besides that, she's letting me do my own thing. So I guess that's her kind of letting me spread my wings and fly in college. So
pretty much every day.
every other day.
Every other day.
Now that I'm home, I guess I'm forced to talk to her more. But totally kidding, she rocks. But
Go this way.
I'm out of state, so I don't get to go home that much, but I go home for Thanksgiving and Christmas. I went home for spring break 2 years ago, but when I talk, I usually text my mom every day, just telling her what's going on, but every Sunday at 8 p.m. I Skype home, and it's nice to see their faces, and so that's fun.
So that's where you see the difference between Skyping and going down to the end of the hall and waiting and have a few things. But let's talk about football weekends, what they were like, what they are like now. And Woody, go to football games. What did you dress? Who did you go with? What did you have on? Who did you go with? What was that? Don't tell me what you had in your pocket.
I remember everything. I want to mention one more thing about the telephone for you. At the end of our hall, when I was a freshman, and my name is Woody, Woody Durham was a sophomore, and he lived in the dorm too. So every time the phone rang, somebody would yell, "Woody!" It was always for him. Football, the kids today probably wouldn't understand because we wore ties, and often coaching ties, to the football games. And it was only after I graduated from law school and ended up out west somewhere that I went to a pro football game in San Diego and got there in my coat and tie, and everybody there thought I'd come from Mars.
Did you usually go with?
I
Take a date, or what, how did that work?
Most of the time it was just groups of people, but I don't remember very well at all, to tell you the truth. It just groups of people would go together and stand in line and get in as students.
Judy?
Yeah, we dressed up. The women wore high heels and suits or dresses. We were not allowed to wear Bermudas or slacks on campus then anyway. And we walked from wherever we were in the heat, this in the fall, to the stadium, and it was exhilarating. And because of the ratio of men to women at that time, I always had a date to the game.
All right, students, how do you guys go to the games these days? What do you ladies talk for us here?
Well, the ratio is very different now, so I don't really ever have a date. I'm just kidding. But football games are pretty much an all-day event on campus. They'll usually start in the morning with tailgating, and usually your family members or your close friends will go to like Rules Lot or maybe on stadium and you'll tailgate before the game. And there's no dress code. In fact, sometimes people paint up, so that means you're not going to wear a shirt and you're going to put paint on your body, and you'll spell things out, usually with a group of your friends. And so the student section of the tar pit is right above the tunnel, and that's where the rowdy people are. I'm not too rowdy, so I hang out right to the side of the tar pit, so I can cheer at my own pace with some of my good friends. I usually have, some of my good friends are on the team, and so I'll sit with their family members. And then after the game, people usually hang out and do stuff at night. So yeah, it's very relaxed.
Hang out where?
Well, you just hang out in different places. I don't know. It's just a game day, so you hang out.
Okay.
I don't have much to add because I usually paint up for the games, like Alexis said. So I usually get there like 3 hours before the game with some friends, and then get sunburned because we're out there all day. But so yeah, it's a really fun experience. I really enjoy it. There's also people who still dress up. A lot of fraternities and sororities will come and they'll be in their their nice coats and ties and sundresses. So they still dress up, but most of us were more casual. So it's always a really good time. And then afterwards, you go to a movie, you go to frat court. They have parties afterwards, or you just hang out with your parents. I usually go to dinner with my parents. They have season tickets, so we usually do that from time to time. So it's a good time. I really enjoy it.
Stephen and Dershey, what about basketball games? Did you go to basketball games as an undergraduate? How did that work?
Yeah, I think I went to just about all the basketball games. So remember, it was Woolen Gymnasium. And Woolen Gymnasium was a gymnasium. There was no seats permanent. So they would put up, about 4,000 seats at the most. And Jack, my roommate, and I, we would get in line at the little ticket window at Woolen Gym, and we would always get the tickets for Section 12, Row G, C32, C31.
You knew somebody. That didn't just happen.
Jack got up early. So this was in the end zone. There was only one end zone, I believe. And so we could see Billy Cunningham up close and personal. It was a different time, and again, it was, our first year was Coach McGuire's last year here. Our second year was Coach Smith's first year, his only losing year.
I was dating my husband at that time, and he and Jack were on the freshman basketball team together, and he has this lovely way of telling people that he played for Dean Smith, and that was, of course, when he was the assistant coach. And Larry was totally gung-ho for basketball, so of course it became very contagious, and he knew all the players. And the stories about Dean Smith yesterday, Dean Smith would come to Asheville after Larry playing 1 year for him as a freshman and always know him and always say such nice things. At any rate, it was very noisy. Do you remember how noisy it was? I was struck when we went to the Smith Center how quiet it was. It felt like the building would cave in, but it was such a frenzy and such a tradition that it's hard wherever you are. I think if you live through that to not out in the hinterlands tune into what the Cardinals are doing, and it was really in our blood, I think.
One other thing, who remembers Lou Bello? Wow. Yeah, that was part of the event as well. Lou Bello was one of the officials, and if somebody made a bad play or even a good play, he'd come up, give him a little tap on the hiney, say, he talked to him throughout the game. He was just doing everything.
Exactly right. Do you remember that students whose last names began with A through K would have one game, and then you'd go L through Z for the next game, and you'd be allowed to get in?
If you wanted to get in, you got in every game.
I told you Chief Beaumont is really
It's worse than that. We went to every Duke home game. At Duke, you could go over there, walk down the hall, and get somebody's pass and go to the game. And they didn't go to the games. And they had All-American players and the great games. And we went to the Carolina Duke games at Duke because we could just walk in there and go.
So students, what's it like now to get into the Smith Center?
So how the tickets work, you get a ticket lottery, you have to enter your name into the lottery, and a week before the game you'll get an email that says either you got tickets or you didn't, and they separate the game into phases. So phase 1 you get to go in first, and phase 2 second, phase 3 third. And I've only gotten phase 1 tickets probably once in my 3 years here. And this past year I only got tickets to one game, and I didn't even get to go because it was a Thursday night and I had a lot of work to do. So I haven't been to the Dean Dome in a long time, but I love going to the games. It's so exciting when the team comes out and the lights go down, and it's just like you get chills because it's so exciting. And Carolina basketball is so much fun. You get 2 tickets, and so you get to bring a friend whenever you get them.
If I were the AD, you'd get in.
Okay, so like Fred said, they have the phases, and I remember my freshman year, my first time I entered the lottery was for the state game, and I got 2 tickets, phase 1, so it was huge. Like I brought one of my friends, and but we waited like 5 hours in line to get in the risers, which is just, I don't know, my first game was in the risers with the state game, and I know they're not our real rivals, but it was one of the best games I've ever been to because we beat them maybe in the last like minute of the game, kind of like a scare. But so that was a great memory, and I think Carolina basketball is, I don't know, everybody loves it, and everybody's watching the game. Like if you're not watching the game when it's on TV or trying to get into the game, then you don't even go here. So.
All right, let's reverse.
So I have one more thing. Yeah. So I guess better for worse, I've been at every basketball game in 3 years here, and that's because I do a thing called Carolina Fever, which is sort of like this student, I guess, fan club more or less. And so if you do that, so everyone can sign up now, and you get points for going to other sporting events. So, and it depends on the sport. Like women's field hockey is 3 points, women's volleyball is 3 points, and men and women's soccer is 2 points. And so throughout the fall semester, you accumulate points. So once the basketball season starts, the more points you have, I guess the more chance you have of going to the basketball games. And so they guarantee a certain amount of students with those points phase 1 tickets. And so I like all Carolina sports. We're getting everything pretty much across the board, so go us. But I have phase 1 tickets to every game. I've phase 1 tickets to every Duke game so far. So I've had a nice time at the Dean Dome in the last 3 years. It's been really fun. But I care about it, so I make time. So I really enjoy it. So it's a cool way to sort of like cut out the lottery system. So the lottery system kind of stinks. It's not the best, but it is what it is.
I'm glad you offered that, because that is a tremendous way for the Olympic sports to get attendance. So let's shift a little bit now and talk about technology and registration. And so,
they'll have to do all the talking.
well, I want Dershie and Stephen to talk about how they registered for classes and then how they dropped and added classes.
Well, I'm easy. I've got a lot of nursing school classmates up here. We were conscripted. We were scheduled to take so many labs and so many courses. Everything was predetermined. I think we had three free electives the whole time we were here, something like that. Those of you, do you remember? At any rate, very, very few. And so they had us signed up, lined out, and I do know that they would sometimes schedule seminars in the nursing school on top of our free electives, and then we got to choose whether we went to the nursing class or the one on campus, and if you chose wrong, you were in trouble with the nursing faculty in a hurry. So I had no free choice to speak of, and the few things that we did do, we did it right through the nursing school. So
You had 3 electives, I think, in accounting we had 2 electives. So it's
I
like,
think I asked the wrong people.
but I won't delve on that. I remember Will and Jim, again, not for basketball, but tables set up all over the place and punch cards. And you'd get all these punch cards and you try to get the classes you want. You'd run to that table and that one was already filled, so you'd have to run back to this table. There was no pre-registration that I recall in our 4 years. Maybe at the very end, but it was very different.
Woody and Judy, can you offer anything on your registration or dropping courses? How was that? Do you remember anything about that?
Yeah, I don't recall dropping, and a lot of what I took seemed predetermined, but it probably wasn't. I just remember it was a zoo. That was the main thing. It was there. Everybody was running around, back and forth, this and that. Did you get this? Did you get that? Who did you get? It was very wild, very wild. But somehow we got in school and graduated. So.
You had a time to drop or add a course in that gym, but after that, you had to go to department by department to leave off your card, or you were supposed to, and then go pick up your other card somewhere else.
I vaguely remember one drop situation where I had to go see this professor. And at the time I was in pre-med and he was telling me that I had to take German to go to medical school. And I didn't agree with him. I did get out of it too.
So students, how is it, Judy, you want to answer?
We were required at that time to take 1 year of math, Latin, or Greek. Do y'all remember? And so that was the thing. I mean, we had to do that. And so people were panicky about that. You had to get it. And the swimming requirement. Yes, the swimming. You want to tell them about it?
no, I didn't have to do it, but you did. I got out of it.
Yes, yeah, I think I managed to get out of it somehow. But I didn't get out of the math, Latin, or Greek. That I didn't get out of.
So how do you folks register these days? Dershie, did you want to add something?
No, I didn't have to do the swimming requirement, but most of you did, I think. And it was, I mean, you couldn't graduate without swimming. How far was it? Across the pool or something like that? And first, I didn't even know how to swim, so it was a big problem for me.
So we do have technology now, but you ask students, they would probably say it's equally as wild and stressful. When you first come to Carolina at orientation, which they call C-TOPS now, they put you in a room at the end of your orientation session in like a computer lab room, and it's interesting. And so they say when you go into this room, they're talking, you set your computer, you look forward, and they count down from 3. And they go 3, 2, 1, go. And they tell you to click and register. And I will never forget it because the girl next to me was so nervous, she was breathing heavily. And as soon as they said go, she started crying. And I was just like, oh, it's gonna be okay, but I was trying to register for my own classes. Like, we know you can do this, you're gonna get it. But once you get into your classes, of course you have all summer to change them if you don't like them online. But we use a system called Connect Carolina, and you'll go in and you'll put classes in your virtual shopping cart. And so for different majors, there are different prereqs or requirements. And you get, much like the ticket system, you get it's almost like a lottery for registration times. And so they will range from 8 in the morning, which is a good registration time. So you can have, your pick of any of the classes before they get closed up. Do you guys know what the latest registration time is? 4:45. And then they're done by seniority, so seniors will go on a Monday, whereas first years might go on a Friday to register for classes. That's the way it's done. The system isn't always as effective as it should be, but I think it's much better than punch cards, I would say. As far as dropping classes go, you can drop them online until a certain day. And if that deadline, the drop-add deadline passes, you'll have to go to the Still building, which is the academic advising building, to drop that class.
That pretty much covers it.
And then, so you have halfway through the semester, you have 8 weeks, I think, to drop a class. So that was nice. It's really good. You could experiment with different classes, try a class, see if you liked it or not, see if you did well, and if not, you could drop it, and it wouldn't hurt your GPA. But now they just passed, I think starting next year, incoming first years this year, you have 8 days to drop a class. So that's a big change. So we'll see how that goes with the first years, I guess. So that's sort of how the drop policy has changed a little bit recently.
Okay.
There's something called pass-failing classes. I don't know, was that around? That was around back in the day. But yeah, so now, how many classes can you pass-fail? 2?
Just the major. You can only pass one class in your major classes.
Okay. Yeah, so we pass-fail classes if they're going to affect our GPA or not as well.
So about 10 years ago, I was invited to my wife Linda and I were invited to a 50s party. And so one of Linda's friends said to her, "So what is Dickie going to wear to the 50s party?" And she said, "Well, whatever he wore to work." Whatever, that hadn't changed much for me, but I want to know what you guys wore to class. And then I want it to come down here. I like everybody just to take a brief stab at that. And Dershie, when it gets to you, I want you to talk about what you wore when it snowed. Think about that.
I wore to class exactly the same thing I'm wearing today. And have been for the last 50 years. Button-down collar, khaki shirt. The one thing I've changed is shoes. I can't wear Wheatons anymore, they hurt my feet.
Women, we're not allowed to wear Bermuda shorts, anything but dresses or skirts to class. So that's what we wore to class, and everything had to match. Skirts and sweaters had to be all coordinated and match perfectly. And of course, we wore Regions as well, and no socks. Socks were not allowed.
Ditto, yeah. We jeans, khakis, no blue jeans at all hardly then. Button-downs were just coming in the early 60s. And it was either mattress, as you said earlier, or just plain blue shirts.
Dershie, my point was on snow days, my memory is Miss Carmichael would make a ruling about what women could wear to class.
I don't remember, tell me
Yeah,
what it was.
she would decide that dresses or skirts were not required.
She would waive
Waive
it.
the requirement, and you could wear slacks or jeans or.
See, I think we probably had less of that because so many of our classes were over there, but yeah, you're right, she did. It was a big decree and it was a big deal when she did it.
Exactly. So I know y'all dress just like that, right?
Absolutely, every day. In this dress. Now, if I was to be dressed like this on a class day, someone would come up to me and be like, "Alexis, do you have an interview? Where are you going? Are you going to a special event?" Because the standard day-to-day dress, well, it depends on the student, but for me personally, I will wear anything from like a nice pair of jeans and a nice top. I would say that's the norm for me. But if I'm having a rough day, if I have 2 tests, then I'll wear workout gear, and people say, "Are you on your way to the gym?" No, I'm not. I have a late night studying probably, but there's no standard of what you can expect, except from student athletes, because student athletes always dress the same in their Nike gear that they get from the university. So that's how we spot them. That's how we know if they're an athletic team. But it's really anything. You wake up, how do you feel like dressing? That's how you dress.
Yeah, some days are casual, some days are more formal. I wouldn't even say formal, just dress nicer. Some days I'll wear this, some days I'll wear a t-shirt and shorts, and usually, almost always comfortable shoes because I'm always walking. I have to walk all the way down towards the hospitals. We're at the School of Public Health and then back, and so we're always on the move, so I always wear comfortable shoes.
Okay, now this is a question where I have really been interested in the differences. And so if everybody could just take a brief moment, tell us what you did in the summers. Between years, what would you do?
Our summers are mostly taken up with staying here because we were doing the 5-year course in 4 years. So we had a couple of weeks off, and I did get to go home. I think I did. I went home for a couple of weeks. And when I got off the airplane, I put on blue jeans and cowboy boots and went to help brand. And I branded out with friends on the ranches around here. And then came back, and we were in the trenches again right away in the nursing school, working in the hospital.
2 summers I had to go to summer school because I didn't have to, but accounting was 4.5 years, so I got the half year that way. 2 summers I worked back in Atlanta, nothing to do with my career track. I worked for Atlanta Linen Company, picking up dirty linens from all the nicest country clubs in Atlanta, and I'd see friends, you know, having a good time, and I would be stinky and smelly from the back rooms.
Well, I love summer school, so I went to summer school in the summers. And room with the same roommate, well, one roommate one time and another roommate lived in Spencer dorm one summer. And just enjoyed summer school and got ahead in the classes. And between summer school and the fall semester, I went to the beach a lot, and I also worked part-time in a shoe store.
The first couple of summers, I did the summer school one time and the beach one time, and then I went and worked at Lake Tahoe as a janitor at a casino. And the next year I went to Switzerland and worked as a waiter in a restaurant.
So what do you do now?
So I guess there's pretty much 3 options that we all do. Either A, you work, B, you go to summer school, or C, you go abroad. Those are pretty much the 3, I guess, you had to categorize them, the 3 main things. And so I've done all 3, ironically. So after my first year, I did summer classes and worked on campus to make some money and do some prereqs for business school. And then last year, I went to China and Hong Kong for 2 months to work. And then I'll do an internship this summer in Tennessee. So I've done the gamut of all things possible during the summer.
The summer after my freshman year, I worked in a restaurant, which was a good experience. Last summer, I went to Spain and took classes there and then traveled. And then this summer, I'm working in a research lab here.
Last summer, I did summer school for the second session, and I think that summer school is really nice here just because it's more quiet. It's a nice part of Chapel Hill. It's another side of Chapel Hill, I guess. So like living here when almost nobody's here, nobody on campus. So libraries are empty, which is nice if you're doing school. And then this summer I'll be doing summer school for both sessions as well, and I have an internship. So.
Yeah, echoing what Landon said, there's really only 3 options. And so my first summer I worked, and then I spent some time in Costa Rica. Last summer I did a business and marketing internship that had a national and international scope, and then this summer I'll be doing an internship in DC. But there's definitely an unspoken, like you have to get an internship, little whisper on campus, and it's almost like when we talk about our summers, it's not like, oh, what are you going to do for the summer? Are you going to go have fun? So what are you going to go do for the summer? Like, are you going abroad? Are you going to have a great internship? So that Carolina, always on the move, always looking for the next step, continues on into summer, which for most students is relatively relaxing.
All right, thanks. We're going to have one more question of the panel, then we're going to throw it open to the audience. And that is, I want to know if you have had a favorite professor here and in some ways touched you, and if you could just give us a little bit of why that person might have made some difference in your life.
Okay, I guess when you start thinking about that, you think about so many different things, it's hard to pick one, but to go back to my freshman year, I think Bill Gear in Modern Civilization was probably my favorite professor, and partly because he was so down to earth and so much a part of the class, and we were talking to him and everything, and also because I enjoyed the Modern Civilization history.
Did you ever get the Red Bull?
Never got the Red Bull. Is that something he does?
He did. He had a stamp in red ink when he was reading a paper, and he thought it was of that kind, you stamp on your paper.
No, I didn't get one of those.
You didn't know that?
I missed that.
Good.
I had many favorites, but my favorite was Dr. Boyd, Professor Boyd in the religion department. And I learned more from him than I ever thought I would ever learn about the subject of religion. So many religions, and he knew everything, detail, he went into detail. It was excruciating sometimes, but it was fascinating. And I think he was pretty famous beyond here, as far as I know.
Oh, he absolutely was, and he's no question a favorite of so many people of our time.
You asked us to also say what held off later, or I remember Dr. Harlan, and I took the course Archaeology in the Bible, and that was so, it was a crypt course, so it was full, and it was full of all the athletes and everything else. But I went to every single class, and I actually learned all this stuff, and I can tell you what a triglyph and a metapig and all those things are. Today, when I go to some place and do all those things, I think back to that class. And even though it was a crypt course, I learned stuff that I used the rest of my life out of that class.
Sorry.
They don't call them crypt classes anymore. That word's gone. So most of my courses were accounting. I guess one of my favorite, though, one of my two electives was a speech course. I don't remember the professor, but I do remember Billy Galentine was in the course, and that kept us laughing the whole time. In accounting, Isaac Newton Reynolds. Anybody have him? Yeah. And we had the big 13-column spreadsheets that we'd spend half the night trying to get them to balance. But it was fun.
I didn't have many electives on campus, and our nursing school professors were mostly very hard on us, but I remember Dr. Peter Walker. He was a history professor. But I just thinking of Dr. Harlan, Ms. Carmichael told me this wonderful story about him. I'm going to do it real quickly because we don't have time, but he was such a character. And his wife, when he was in Chapel Hill, was having bridge club. And she'd been after him for weeks and weeks to get the leaves raked before bridge club came. And he sort of, in his own little absent-minded way, kept forgetting to do it. And the day of the bridge club, he was busily hammering and nailing down the basement, and she was furious. And when everyone walked in that day, the bridge club, they were laughing uproariously. And she went out in the front yard, and there was a beautiful sign, nicely made and lettered, that said, "Leaves artistically arranged by J.P. Harlan."
So I have two professors that have really made an impact on me. One was my first year, and the class was in this room. And his name is Lawrence Rosenfeld, and I loved him because he made a class of about 150 seem like it was 15 people. And he would like run up and down the aisles and try to have interactions with each student, and if you were quiet, you were a target. And he just really had a way of helping us interact with the material in such a way that really helped us apply it outside of the classroom as well. And the second would be a journalism professor by the name of Napoleon Byers. He and his wife, Queenie Byers, they just recently retired. But he had this thing about if you're going to do anything, just do it with excellence and be great. That's, you find one thing, you should be great. And I admire that. So those are two people that really impacted my Carolina experience.
Okay, so my favorite teacher has been, it was actually this past semester, his name is William Sturkey, and he taught my History 128 class, which I believe is history from 1945, 45 until now. Though I didn't remember the class name, I remembered everything that he taught us. He had a way of being, it was a small class, so it was about 20, 25 people, and the class was in a conversation, it was a conversation throughout the entire time, so you should probably raise your hand in that class, but you can interject, ask any questions, and he just had overflowing knowledge. He knew so much, and I think that was the coolest part about it. I could ask him anything, and he would say, well, as a matter of fact, enlist 10 different facts about that certain event, and he knew things that I just wouldn't even dream that you could learn, so I thought that was really, really cool.
So many of the classes here are huge classes, some up to almost 400 people, so it's really hard to make connections with professors, especially as freshmen. But one of the professors I had for my genetics class, her name's Kelly Hogan, and everyone knows her on campus, especially in the sciences, because she is a great professor, even though she's one of the hardest professors you'll take. But she uses a lot of technology, interactive polling during the classes, and you text in an answer, and that'll be part of your participation grade. And she really interacts with the classes and makes you really learn the material, and she's a great professor.
I think I have two. So they're both in business school. So the first one is for my accounting professor, C.J. Skidner. He's pretty famous around the country for his accounting. But he has like it's a 400-person class. It's a big prereq for business school. But every day you come to class, he has 3 songs he plays before class. And he writes them on the board. And then halfway through class, he'll take off his jacket every time without fail. And then he'll play a movie. And he'll have it on the board, and it'll do like the initials. And so he'll play them every day for the entire semester, and at the end of the semester, he'll ask you if you can name all the songs that you had played in the movies, and you get 100 on the final if you can list all of them off. And he's also just really quirky. He wore ties every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then bow ties Tuesdays, Thursdays. So he's just kind of a quirky guy. He's really funny. He always made accounting, which is kind of a dry subject, really entertaining and engaging. And then another one, sort of like what Brett said. So this past semester, I was doing like a consulting project with Harris Cherokee Casino out in Cherokee, North Carolina, and I had a faculty advisor, and there's only 6 of us. There's only 6 of us to 1 professor. So it's really just nice to sort of develop that personal relationship with your professor. I got to talk to her about my career, what I wanted to do, and what my likes and dislikes. It's just nice to really just have like a really personal mentor on campus. You could talk to you about anything, coming and going. So that was really nice to have this semester.
Thank you. You all really appreciate those answers. And I knew you would be interested in, particularly on the faculty side, and I knew you would be interested in how our faculty continue to energize, educate, and take care of our young people. So what are the questions from the audience now? So just state your name. You start to the camera.
While they're doing that, I just want to thank the Alumni Association for all you've done.
Please, next, please. You don't have to answer that.
Okay.
Now, he's going to tell you what the 10 can.
No, I'm gonna let
Steve
Steve
tell you. Okay, Steve, tell us what the 10. Educate our students here.
So way back, there was Bynum. Bynum Hall is an educational building now, but it used to be the gymnasium there, and that's where the basketball team played. Then they went to what's affectionately known as the Tin Can. Did it have a name other than? It was the Tin Can, and I have a paperweight with a piece of the Tin Can in it. It was where Fetzer Gym is now. It was a Quonset type building, and it was cold. It was really cold in there, and that's where we'd have PE classes, and you didn't mind running because you wanted to warm up in there.
They had a track in there, and a lot of fans. Thank you, good point.
No, can I get, she's got it.
Hi, I'm Richard Vesey from the class of 64, but the question I have, Dick, is probably addressed to you as well as these students, and that is, was a member of the Rams Club, and in the Rams Club there's certain privileges that you get in athletic events. But if we look at TV and we look at the other schools in the area, they put their students right down on the basketball court, and they surround the court. Here in Carolina, we put our students, and I go to the games, way up in the rafters, and you could hardly hear them. Let's put them on the court. I don't think that the Rams Club members of mine going back about 10 seats. So that is a question that a lot of us would like an answer to. I've heard a lot of people talking about. Thank you.
Sure, I think I can answer that. I wasn't the AD when Smith Center was built, but I do know this, that it cost $32 million to build that facility. And at that time, nobody in this country had ever raised that kind of private money to build a facility. So the university and the Rams Club made a decision that if they were going to take this on and do something that could be really special for Carolina, they were going to have to do some things that had never been done before. In addition to raising that money, they had to guarantee some seats. And they had to guarantee the good seats. Now, I hear your point about way up, but that's a little bit of a stretch, okay? Because they are downstairs, and they had about, I'm going to remember, about 2,000 seats downstairs, and then about 4,000 seats upstairs that were allotted for the students. And we'll say during my time, we were able to make some moves, but actually this is too much detail for you. But because of the sight lines down there where both teams enter, we were able to make some changes and move those seats, students down there in the riser section. So that was the best thing that we could do at that time. Actually, the students down where they sit downstairs, the Carolina Athletic Association has made that decision to get all the students together. They actually had better seats on the other side, but they wanted more synergy, I guess you would say, with the students. But I hear your point, and it's well taken, and if we would do it again, we probably would make a different arrangement. But when you make a commitment to somebody and you say, you come to the Smith Center, you pick out your seat, and I'm telling you, if you stay a Rams Club member, you're going to have this seat forever. It's a pretty hard, it's a pretty good contract, and it's hard to back off of that.
Good morning, thank you all. I'm Joe Griffin, retired, semi-retired physician living in Augusta, Georgia. And I have a question about smoking and current smoking policy on campus. One of my strong memories is going to an 8 o'clock history course taught by Dr. Klingberg, who was a chain smoker. And he would start out the morning with a lit cigarette leaning on the podium lecturing, and he would light the next cigarette with the butt of the first one. And he did this for the 50 minutes of the lecture every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And because we had classes 3 days a week. So I would like to hear the current students comment about what the smoking policy is, and also if any of the older ones have similar recurrences of what was going on campus.
So smoking on campus is rare. The unofficial, I think it is an official rule that you have to be within 100 yards, or is it feet? Feet, is it 50?
50 feet, I think. Any university.
I thought it was 100. Yeah, from any university building, you can't smoke within 100
Which
feet.
really means it's about the middle of Keenan State.
On campus near the flagpole, we call it like the smoker's circle, because the students that do smoke, they'll do it. You'll see them like when you're going to classes, they'll be around the flagpole, which has like a couple like cigarette ashtrays or whatever. But smoking for the most part, unless you're an employee of the university, but then if you're in housekeeping or if you work in the dining hall, that's more likely that you'll smoke. But I would say from students or professors,
Still not allowed.
they're not allowed to smoke, but they're more likely to smoke than students are, or that professors are. You very rarely see a professor smoking or students smoking for that matter, because it's just something that everyone's like, smoking's gross. So it's not a cool thing to do.
Sandra Rich, wife of Stephen Rich, class of 64. My question is to both groups. Some of us, we live in Chapel Hill, so Franklin Street is familiar to us. Some of us who've returned have noticed there's a big change on Franklin Street. Could the class of 64 talk about what Franklin Street was like and the kinds of shops that were there? And could the current students let us know what you like about Franklin Street, and do you go there?
I guess I'm starting. Obviously, a lot of things have changed as far as what's on Franklin Street now. The porthole really wasn't on Franklin Street, it was up the alley off of there, but they had great biscuits with apple jelly, I think it was. There were a lot of other places on Franklin Street where we went. Of course, the Rathskeller was the main place to eat. And,
How many men's clothing stores do you think were downtown?
Milton's and Julian's are across the street from each other, I guess.
At least 5.
And the Hub, and, yeah, there were lots of men's stores and jewelry stores, I don't.
So what did you go downtown Franklin Street for? When you walked over there, what were you going to do?
Going to eat and drink and shop. Went to the Rat if you could get in. That was the big if. Or if not, go to Zoom Zoom. Now, as I recall, women could not go to the Goodies shop or to the Carolina coffee shop. Right? Am I right? Yeah. So we were not allowed in that unless we, later on, I think, in the senior year, we could go with the board.
I don't know where it was, but one of my roommates used to go down there every night. And when he wrote his themes for English before he went, he got C's and D's. And when he wrote after he came back down there, he got A's.
And then, of course, the movie theaters were there. That was there. When I was riding down Franklin Street yesterday, there was a driver that drove me. Yeah, the Kemps, yeah. And I said, well, I'd like to go to Franklin Street. He laughed. He said, you're on Franklin Street. I said, no, I meant Franklin Street. He said, no, this is Franklin Street. I didn't see one thing that was there when we were there.
There was Lake Cox, because you had to get your Weegens fixed. There was Ledbetter Pickers. And Kemp, somebody mentioned Kemp's. Everybody remember Kemp's, where McAllister's is now. He always had a sign when the students came back, welcome back students, keep Kemp's green, bring money. And the albums were all of like $2.98.
There was Danziger's, and that I remember, and I think there was a woman's store where you could buy clothes. It was called Corner Cupboard or something covered. The Little Shop. The Little Shop. Okay. In County Campus, that was another one. So there were, but they all sold the same things that we all wore all the time. The Intimate Bookshop, the Intimate, how could we miss the Intimate? It burned, didn't it? It was a wonderful, wonderful, it's the ultimate bookstore, I guess. But I think that I still, the question I think that you were asking was, what do we miss? And I can't believe that somebody hasn't recreated the Rathskeller. I mean, it had such an amazing, remember those sizzling steaks coming out on those hot skillets?
They were called gamblers.
Gamblers, thank you. And you had to dodge these waiters that were frenetically running around. That's a real miss to me to not be able to go back there.
So students, why do you go to Franklin Street?
So I guess I go there primarily, I guess there's eat and drink obviously still there, but I like to go to the yogurt pump, which is like a dessert place for frozen yogurt. So that's a little popular. And I guess like the go-to bar would be Top of the Hill. That's pretty standard. Everyone loves to go there on a Friday or Saturday. Or He's Not, which is outside bar. And then we still have some old stays. There's still Julian's. It's across the street from the Carolina Coffee Shop. We have the Ye Old Waffle Shop, it's been there for a while. That's pretty standard. Sutton's Drugstore, Sutton's is still good. They have like their 50-cent hot dogs sometimes in the spring semester. That's always a good go-to for 50-cent hot dogs. But yeah, so a lot of things have changed. There's high turnover in a lot of stores and restaurants. Pretty standard. Probably from like every few months or so it changes. But there are still some things that are still the same old about Franklin Street that we all love and care about.
Yeah, I'll say that it's hard for a lot of family-owned businesses to stay open on Franklin. A lot of them close. Like a lot of new restaurants come over the summer, and every time you go to Franklin, something's different. And a lot of restaurants close. A lot of new ones get put in, and they don't do as well. None of them really do well. So there have been a lot more chains coming, like Subway and Panera, because they can deal with the traffic better.
I mean, I guess my favorite part about Franklin Street is kind of on days like this when it's super sunny outside, everybody's still all out and about with all their families, and any given moment, if you're driving down the street, I think that's my favorite part, is just seeing everybody out, and I think it really describes Franklin Street well, just kind of like the culmination of all of Chapel Hill, and that's my favorite part.
Yeah, I think as far as for a college campus, Franklin Street is very ideal for us. I have friends that go to State, Duke, like schools around in the area, and they don't have an equivalent to Franklin Street. They don't have anything where it's just like, oh, all the students go to Franklin Street, or when we beat Duke, everyone rushes Franklin Street, and everyone, people that don't even go to school, rush Franklin Street. And one of the things that for me, I was never, and I'm still not a big, I'm gonna go out and party, but me and my friends late at night, we wouldn't have anything to do. We're like, let's just go to Franklin Street. Maybe we'll just go to Walgreens, buy a little pint of ice cream, and walk around. You'll see your friends. There are places open really late that you can go get food. We recently have a Waffle House that opened, but they're 24 hours, right? Yeah, they're 24 hours. So it's just a great asset for a college town. I think it really puts the seal on Chapel Hill as a college town.
Okay, I'm stopping right now. Thank Linda right here for